Thanks to awesomex.com for sponsoring The Bridge with Kira. Supercharge your immunity with LB17 and the other fine products at awesomex.com, OSUMEX.com.
Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, ay 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 hurry up,
Welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host, Kira Young, and you've reached me on Revolution Radio, simulcasting on Real Liberty Media. Today my guest is Alistar Valadez from the metal band DMT. Welcome to The Bridge, Alistar Valadez.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kira.
We've had a couple of previous conversations, and I think this one's going to really hit it out of the park.
Third time's the charm, right?
Exactly. So for those of the listeners who don't know who you are, tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Alistar Valadez. Play in a metal band called DMT, and then I also do some writings. Some people call me a mystic or a poet, but really I just spread a message that that resonates from my inner core after having a DMT experience.
And for those who want to hear details of that experience, I will put some links on the YouTube video that we put out of this, and you can go back and listen to that. But what it really did for you is just, it opened up a whole nother world to you, and it made you basically see this world in a whole different way.
Right, exactly. So when I did the DMT, it really was a true shamanic death rebirth experience. It was far beyond anything I could have ever imagined could have happened to me. I had researched DMT for probably like 5 years before I actually did it. I already had understood psychedelics. I had done some when I was younger and so forth. But really, when I did it, it just really, at the moment I did it, it killed me. It told me it killed me. I went through the whole process of dying, had a life review, and it was just a really mind-expanding experience, that's to say the least.
How is DMT different from, say, psilocybin or mushrooms or some other type of hallucinogen, or as they're called now, entheogens? Right.
They these different chemicals, they all have this similar feel to them. There's a certain little energy that your body feels that I can't put into words, that sort of is similar to the different type of chemicals. But the difference really with the DMT is it removed this world and put me into a different world. To me, I describe it as a dimension, whether I self-created it, if it's an inner or outer, it's definitely debatable, but it definitely put me into another space of reality.
So not as mild as maybe somebody who eats some mushrooms or something and has like a sort of a mild psychedelic experience. It's really, really from I've been doing research on it too. Actually, since I've talked to you, some more research about it, and they're all just really, really quick, but maybe like 5-10 minutes, but it seems like an hour to the person. So like a dream state.
Right, it's like timeless, just like when you go to sleep at night, we literally travel through time, when you lay down to go to sleep, your eyes close, and to the moment where you open your eyes, it's almost like an instant passing of time. But within there, we go through these experiences of dream. Same thing when I was in that DMT state, like time wasn't even a factor. It felt like not only did it last a really long time, it was just such an expansive landscape that it like time and distance and everything was just one process just unfolding all at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Totally. And I've never done DMT, so but we all produce it naturally, small
Right.
bits of it.
So that's what some doctors believe. That's why when we go to sleep at night and we have dreams, it's because our body's making this DMT and putting us into these vivid states of hallucination. And just like DMT and dreams, there's always some form of individual thing that's specific to you that relates to your life, and so DMT really expands upon who you are the moment you enter, the state of your mind, just like your dreams. You know how, a lot of times dreams have patterns of what you're going through in life.
Yeah, and a lot of dream interpretists really like to look at each character in your dream as an aspect of yourself. And I'm
Right,
sure
right,
you could
right.
look at your trip the same way, your DMT experience in a similar way.
Exactly. And, so it's not so much that the details or something we're supposed to, you know, cling to and, and worship, and that's the be all end all, but it's just more how this experience helps the evolution of your consciousness, just like this life does. This life, we go through experiences where we're constantly expanding, having to step up beyond who we are, so that's what this experience, but it forces you, to expand. There's no choice. You either expanding or you really don't have a choice. You're just being pushed into this expansion.
It's almost like science fiction in a way, and
Right.
I wonder how many science fiction people were experimenting with psychedelics when they first started writing it. They must have been
Right, right.
to
Well,
really.
there's this rumor that Carl Sagan, who wrote the movie Contact, that he supposedly, allegedly, had the DMT experience, and he kind of used that whole metaphor into his story of the movie, where this ancient technology, is brought down through this signal, and then they build this machine that basically puts Jodie Foster into this portal, and then this portal's like a dream, and it's specific to her, and it kind of explains a little of the process in the way that the characters talk about it, and it's really how it, it's just the way it's always been done, even in our dreams, it's just the way things have always been, that's people wonder why these psychedelic dimensions are so weird, but it's just, reality is weird. Everything is always just there's always this weird, bizarre twist to life.
Yeah, my husband calls dreaming flying. So
Exactly.
when he gets up in the morning, he's like, "Yeah, I'm not quite in my body yet."
So what do you think that is? I mean, it's like, why does it feel like we have to have this process of like rebooting into our body in a sense?
Yeah, because I think that part of us does travel when we sleep.
Right, right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not thinking it's all of us, but probably part of us does travel. And because we're all connected. I mean, life is all connected. So that's why I really like that movie Contact, because it seemed more realistic to me than getting into a rocket ship and shooting off into space. It seemed like a
Exactly.
more realistic way to travel the universe, since
Right.
it's
And
all
I even
connected.
like at the end how she has to admit, as a scientist, yeah, maybe it didn't happen, but in her heart she knows it did.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of probably the way a lot of people who've done DMT feel as well, right? It's
Right,
It,
exactly.
it, it might not happen on this plane, but whatever happened was important and it
Right.
meant something.
Right. And even
And
if it wasn't real, even if it wasn't an outer dimension, the end result of it all still is you change, you know? So whether it's real or not, it still changes who you are, you know? So that's the reality of it.
yeah, and the whole metaphor of contact. Well, contact with what? Your higher self?
Right.
Yeah. And that's pretty good.
So, so deep in that DMT experience, which went through like various phases and different transitions, but there was one point where I was in front of this deity or this goddess. I call her this purple Tibetan goddess, and she was like embedded in this lotus, and it's just all like swirling, and it was just really sinister and sexual, and just it's just it's like, what is that? Is that me, or is that an outer being, you know? How can that be me, you know? Because a lot of people like to debate, you know, that everything you see in these dimensions is just another, like a reflection of yourself, which I guess is true in a sense, but as long as you apply it to this reality too. So, like when I look at Kira Young, you know, yes, she's a separate being, but I guess there are energies and aspects of you that are just an extension of me, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we all project to a certain degree to communicate with each other or to relate to each other. We all
Right,
project our own reality onto other people.
right,
Um, and the odd thing is that when someone in an unhealthy way projects all their stuff onto you, that's really an opportunity for you to learn about your shadow too. Even though it
exactly.
might not be the shadow that they're projecting on you, it's a well, how is it different?
Right, right,
Don't turn away from what your shadow actually is or theirs.
right. You know,
It's
people always want to say opposites attract, but really it's like attracts like. So what it is that what we're seeing is the things that we're attracting to us, you know, it's the resonance, you know. So like right now, you know, you could say that me and you are resonating at the same wavelength, and that's what brings us together, you know. Something brought me and you together, you know. There was that point we didn't even know we existed, but something just all of a sudden brought us together. And and I think it has to do with that like attracts like, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And as far as I'm just thinking in terms of relationships and ones that work, there's enough like there to attract the other and enough different to keep it interesting, I guess.
Right, right. And you can see like when you see couples that are just total opposites, and you see they're always at conflict, you know. I mean, the body tells us when we're on the right path or not if we just listen and feel, you know. It's like when we feel bliss in our heart, we know we are walking the right path. You know, and when there's conflict and struggle in our heart, you know, it's like we're just resisting. We're like, you know, trying to swim upstream, you know, we're just fighting the currents, and you know, that's why there's so much suffering in the world, because we just don't even understand our own process and how we should be, how we have the keys and access to make right decisions all the time. We just don't have the tools and the understanding to tap into them.
Yeah, and until, after the fact, hindsight is it's a wonderful thing.
Right. And just the fact that we can look back at ourselves and see, wow, you know, how could I have done that? You know, it's like that's what this whole thing kind of goes around full circle, and what this whole psychedelic journey brought into my awareness. And that's how we are just so unconscious of even our own unconsciousness, if that makes sense. It's like we can't even, it's easy to see it in other people. It's easy to look at a bad person and be like, oh my God, he's so unconscious. But to see it in ourselves, to see it in ourselves when we get angry, you know, when that guy in the road cuts us off and that rage surges up, you know, and or somebody who does us wrong, you know, it's just an instant reaction to want to get angry, or you know, that process is what we're not doing as a species. You know, we're not understanding our own unconsciousness.
Yeah, it's too uncomfortable. Uh, it's too uncomfortable. People just want comfort. And
Right.
and when you're forced, like with something like DMT, or you get targeted by a cult. I don't know. Something happens in your life where you're forced to look at it, whether you want to or not, whether it's fair or not, whether, whatever, you have to. So that,
Right.
maybe DMT comes into people's lives because they need that jolt, that extra oomph. Look at it. Because
Right.
we're certainly not rewarded for it or encouraged or even taught how to look at it without losing ourselves. Um,
Right.
yeah, and we should be able
Uh,
to laugh at it. That's how comfortable it should be. Is just, oh, ha ha. Um,
well, it's especially in today's society because there's just so much entertainment to consume, and not only do we over excess on food and just overindulge, in desserts and just the mind candy is just so much that you know it just keeps people's consciousness away from themselves and just always feeding on the dreams and consciousness of other people, basically, Does that make sense? When you're
yeah,
watching a movie, you're watching the imagination of someone else versus using that time to actually cultivate and use your own imagination.
yeah. I've noticed it's sort of because we got rid of our TV. Must
Hmm.
be maybe like a year, maybe a year,
Right.
about a year now. And over the past year, it's amazing how much I'm a very introspective person, and I think having the background TV on sort of like started to shut that down a little bit.
Right.
And you need that silence to look within and figure things out. And it's really taken away when we're addicted to that background noise, that TV all the time. And
Right. And it's not that we shouldn't look at TV or a good movie and all that. That is all part of
sure,
life and enjoying, but you just don't want to have that as your main pattern in life, That shouldn't be the main thing. Oh, I got to be home to watch The Walking Dead. I can't, my life revolves around this show. We can't, it's like we're a slave, to other people's dreams and imaginations, where it's fine to watch the shows, but it should just be like the side stuff. What we should be talking about is the things that we're trying to accomplish and the things that we're trying to improve on ourselves, so we can be inspiring each other.
so do you think that the internet is doing that for us, um, or not?
Well, it's both. It's definitely
Yeah,
both. Obviously things like Facebook could just are just tools for many people to build their ego and so forth. But then there's people like you and myself and others that use it as a tool to get this message out because all these people are congregated, at this watering hole in a sense.
right. Yeah. So for myself, I guess over the past 6 months or so, I've been looking at strategies for basically turning the conversation away from bashing other people and really focusing on what do you want rather than what you don't want. What do you want? Let's
Right.
manifest that instead, because we've been talking about what we don't want and what we don't need and what we don't like for a long time. So let's it's not like don't talk about it anymore, because I mean, obviously you need to talk about it, but to steer once the conversation gets to the point of really not being helpful or creative or moving anywhere, it's sort of stuck. Strategies for changing that
Right, right.
and moving
Even if
it.
they don't exist now, just talking about it gets that energy flowing. You start casting out waves and get other people thinking about it. I definitely feel like part of co-creating in life is, expressing the energy of the stuff you want to create. It's easy to complain about the stuff you don't have and the people that did you wrong, but to actually speak about the stuff that you do want in life, that you have to have that mindset in order to start manifesting these things in your life.
Yeah, I want more magic. I want more dancing. I want more
Right.
live music. So I'm putting it out there in the universe. This is what I want.
And by putting it out, the people that are into that stuff are like, oh, look, there's another one. And then, people start talking together and, that's how the stuff starts forming.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, talking to musicians and people who that's a really hard thing to stay in to, because you're not necessarily going to be supported even if you're doing the right thing. Or I mean, there's people who can like tour for decades and still not be huge, but is that really the measure of success, is being huge? Or is it just
Right.
that you're still able to do your craft
Right,
and people
right.
enjoy it?
Or you'll see a lot of like famous actors and actresses, or just like Scott Weiland recently, these people have all the success in the world, but they're just not happy inside for whatever reason, and then they have to reach out to these external chemicals, to make them feel happy when they just they're just lacking the tools, to tap into that thing. So that's what these whole psychedelics, I think, really do, is they help heal people from the disease of the ego, in a sense.
And that's really what shamanism kind of goes back to every time, is
Right.
healing that. So I'm encouraged by we've been sending each other videos back and forth, and you sent me that video about the ayahuasca church and its connection to the Native American church,
Right.
and the peyote church.
Right.
And yeah, I think that people who really put themselves into learning and doing things properly, and being, having a mentor that can guide you, I think you can really become a better person.
Exactly.
I've seen people
One
do that.
thing, one thing I missed when I did the DMT experience is I didn't have a shaman to help reground me, and that I really needed. And I was out of it for a long time because I was just like kind of stuck in this, in between this reality and the other one, and just everything just felt really dreamy. And I was just like reaching out on the internet to all these like shamans and different people I knew, and their words afterwards started, pulling all the things back together again. But I highly recommend that, not doing it alone, but having that shaman, somebody to help reground you back into this reality, because it's a shocking jolt to go from there back to here. Because I remember when I came back here, and when I realized I had not died and the whole world came back, oh, I was just so grateful to be alive. That feeling alone right there, that changes you, It's just that feeling of, you thought you were dead, now you're alive, and now you have another chance. And you know what? This time I'm not going to mess it up.
Yeah, it teaches you gratitude just instantly, how to
Right,
live in gratitude, and that changes you. The more you live in gratitude, that itself changes you too.
right, right.
So,
And even, but you know what? Even though coming out with that powerful experience, if you're not cultivating that fire inside you all the time, every single day, just like a campfire, if you leave a campfire alone, it's just going to eventually dwindle down and go away, And so that's why a lot of shamans say you have to repeat that journey on a, kind of throughout your life to kind of reground you into that. But but I think also just the daily work on your own consciousness, unconsciousness. Like I study a lot of psychology and the work of Carl Jung, so that's really deeply, that his work really tied the kind of psychology back into it, and how that relates into spirituality. So really, that's what my main message now is bringing up the awareness of how unconscious we are. And one of his famous lines is, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to lead our lives, and we will just call it fate.
right, exactly. We're
Right.
we're always trying to work out what we need to work out, whether we're conscious of it or not. Always. Eh,
So, but when you look at the world, everyone's just running on unconscious mode. And it's not that people doing it intentionally, it's like we're unaware of it. It's hard to explain. Just like, you're the one that's controlling the breathing in your body, but you're just unaware of it. But if you focus on it, you will realize, and you can see how you can hold your breath, you can control it. You are in control of your breath. It is you that's breathing. But then at some point, when you don't think about it, that control will just slip away, and it will just be working on its own. And that is the same thing with our consciousness.
Mm. Yeah, I certainly think that gratitude needs to be a daily practice. So,
Right,
um,
right. So
yeah,
like the Buddhists were onto something with the whole meditation, because that's
yeah,
really every day, just bringing you and grounding you back to your center.
yeah. And it teaches you how to do that when you're interacting with people as well. So instead of
Exactly.
just reacting, that you can observe, and
You stop
then
and you take that breath, and then you consciously act. The thing with unconsciousness is that unconscious patterns are just, they're almost like pre-programmed reactions, you know. If you know somebody that you just say a certain word and they always kind of react in that same way, you know, that's just like a programmed unconscious pattern. There's no gap in between the thought and the action. And that's where our spirit, I think, is cultivated and built upon. It's in that gap, in that silent space between our thoughts and our actions.
I would agree. Yeah. Do you think it's a gift to be able to cultivate that, or do you think some people are just naturally better at it, or a combination? Are there
Um,
those that who
I
just
mean,
aren't
I
capable?
think some people would want to say that we can all do it in the same way that you could tell someone, hey, if you dedicate your life, you can be Beethoven, even though that looks like a million miles away. Even I'm a musician, and to become a Beethoven, that looks a million miles away. But I guess if I did dedicate my life and focus on that every moment, I guess I could become that. So I think it really is, it's not that you could, it's not an easy path, but I do think that that path is available for everyone.
Okay. And do you think it's to some degree or another? Do you think anyone can master it?
I think if we look at the patterns of everything else, it seems like there, even if people put the same amount of time into something, there's always a little percentage of people that are just above and beyond everyone else in a sense, whether you look at sports, whether you look at music, whether you know, writing, anything. You know, like some people I think are here for that specific purpose. To be that inspiration, though, I think for others to cultivate it. You know, just like Michael Jordan cultivated a lot of kids to want to play basketball.
Mm, yeah, that could be. And maybe those people naturally have more DMT. Maybe they naturally produce more DMT or something, you know? They have some sort
I mean,
of.
that's, yeah, but I think, I don't know. You know, it depends what your life is dedicated on, you know? So whatever we dedicate our life on, that's what we're a master of. And if we dedicate our life on to nothing, then we're not a master of anything, you know?
True. What do you think the people who come to listen to your music are looking for when they come see you?
Um, well, we're still in the mainly dominated, you know, metal community, which is I don't want to say angry people, but it's sort of like, you know, in the genre of music, it's the people that have a little more aggression in them. So I think this music, you know, like attracts like. So it to me, the music is almost like a meditation because it dissolves away thoughts and dissolves away all the problems of the world and just roots you into the present moment, you know. So any music can do that, even extreme metal music, you know. And I think that's what, when you look out at that crowd, you know, and everyone is just in that one zone, everyone is listening to the same sound, and you know, it's almost like you can't even think with that type of music because it's so loud and extreme, you know. And it's just, you can see there is a sense of like community, you know. Maybe some of these people don't have love in their life or whatever. They have no sense of, you know, community, and you know, that metal community, there is that in that community.
And there's a certain honoring of y- each other's shadow as well. Like, I love you even though even though you have
Exactly.
whole darkness in you, you're
Right.
still worthy of love. And I think
Right.
people are looking for that too.
Right.
Um,
So
Yeah.
everyone in there, like if you go like to there was this there's like the big metal festivals, and you just see everybody's all tatted up and piercings all over, but it's all mixed in with just regular people too. But you could just see everyone is just walking around with a sense of, like a community. Nobody's judging each other. Everyone is just free to be who they are.
Which I love those kind of environments for sure.
Right.
Yeah. I feel more comfortable because I guess to a certain extent, it's a community of outcasts in a way, of
Right.
people who just feel different or experience life in a different way, um,
And I'm
or
sort of
just
drawn, I'm drawn to that aspect of life, There's people that, are drawn more into spreading the message of love and light, where I'm more into the message of facing your shadow, and people that are going through conflicts in life, people that have rough life, rough upbringings. A lot of these people are the people that are going through this process at that moment, versus somebody who's kind of, has a pseudo happy life and they're all pretending they're loving life and just doing yoga and meanwhile they're not doing their own shadow work. So I think the people that are doing the shadow work, that are going through the conflicts, they're the ones that are actually closer to cultivating that spirit connection.
yeah, yeah, because I mean, I don't see anything wrong with really trying to cultivate more love and light in the world, but at
Hmm.
the same time, it can't be the answer to everything. And it can't be to the exclusion of looking at problems, of looking at
Right.
the darkness in the world,
Right.
and trying to
To
figure
me,
it out.
to me, like the love and light is just more like it's more than just words, where that's just about words. It's like telling an overweight person, hey, all you have to do is eat healthy, eat lettuce, and it'll be
Right.
fine. And it's just like, no, it's not that easy. There's something else going on that needs to be resolved for there to be true healing, and that's what these psychedelics and things, they really get into your true self. They force you to see the things you don't want to see and to face it and resolve those things because only that's going to make you more empowered in this world.
Right. And running is actually way harder than just looking at it. People don't realize that, but it's
Right.
not until hindsight that you're like, wow, I spent all those years like trying to avoid looking at this. Now that I finally have, it's
Right.
like, okay, everything that
And
wasn't
it's
so
like you,
hard.
and it's like you can run, but you can't hide. You will face that even if it's on the last day you're alive. I'm when I did the DMT and I did that life review, I did not feel good. It was remorse that I felt. I was in shock. I was sad. I was upset. I was like, oh my God, I messed up. I blew that life. I have kids, my wife, my music, everything gone. And I messed it all up. And, so that whole process, even though it was extreme and it's like, it's not something I am eager to jump back into, but I realized that that really was necessary for me to almost like shake me awake. I was asleep and I didn't even know.
I think also the fact that you didn't have a shaman and that you did do it alone, also it was important for you to do it like
Right,
that,
right.
even though that's probably not the most comfortable.
So, right. So that's why like I talk about the whole rebuilding and the whole facing the shadow because it's really a process that I witnessed and have gone through, and I can see how if I had some advice during this moment, and I did have some and it did help me, but I could see how other people sometimes don't have that, accessible to them because not a lot of people talk about these things. So, when I put out posts on Facebook on my page, you get all these messages of people that just thank you for helping them out in that moment. It's almost like a poem is almost like a spell, and it changes how you feel in that moment. And that's really powerful. And that's like, I can see how words can really shape and change reality. If you look at any great person that came across this planet, they changed the world with their words.
Right. And their actions, the
Right,
actions sort of backing the words, Um,
Right, right. But the words were the fuel, the inspiration to create
mhm.
the action.
And we can use our own words to inspire ourselves and manifest things in our own lives. I mean, I look back at poems that I wrote, 10, 15, 20 years ago, and I'm like, wow.
Right.
Wow.
And
It's
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 like, where does that
amazing.
come from?
Yeah.
It's a lot of the great music in the world, a lot of the great writings. They, people, I'm sure a lot of people like to claim ownership of them, but really they just come out of the inner silence. It's like there's no thinking, it's just it comes out and it is created at the same time, through the writing or through the art.
Right, or like it comes from the collective unconscious or something. We just, as artists, whatever your art is, just learn to tap in.
Right.
And
So some people call it the muse within, or I call it the great silence. People say, "Oh, did you write that?" And I go, um, "I didn't write that. It came from the silence. All the credit goes to the great silence."
yeah, yeah, and it does come through you. That's the amazing part about the process, is that it comes through you.
Right.
Yeah. So let's
And
go back to
so
the shaman. The idea of the shaman. That's really a collective thing as well. Is that we've lost our shamans. Um,
right. So they're like the wise teachers, the guy on the mountain or in the corner of the city, he's not out, partying it up. He's on the side, and the sick people go to him. They have to go out of their little bubble and go out and get his healing, whatever process that is.
right. Yeah, and the shaman isn't like our doctors today. Highly paid, drive a nice car.
Right.
The tribal shaman is really lives a very simple life and gives everything to the people, because the
Right.
people are the ones who put him there. It's a big
Yeah,
responsibility.
where the regular doctor just looks at your outer shell, where the shaman is looking through you. He wants to know, well, if you come sick to him, he wants to know what conflicts you have within you, because that's how you get healed.
Right, right,
And so that ties us into, that whole ayahuasca church. So I had the DMT experience, which was a short 10, 20-minute blast, where ayahuasca is this 3 hour date with this ritual. It's 3 hours where you're self-reflecting on yourself. So it's because it's such a long process, that's a lot of people tend to have great, um, great chances of healing themselves, whether it's a physical ailment or just some past trauma that they've been holding.
right. And so, along with losing our shamans, we've lost our ceremonies, and we all
Hmm.
need ceremony in our life. It's part of the human experience that assists us in our own transformation. So,
Right. I think we
uh,
still hold echoes of it. I think,
yes,
like in our lives, when kids are turn 15, 16, and we had this little special moment where we're supposed to acknowledge they're becoming an adult. In tribal societies, at this age is when they're put into these little rituals where whether it's a psychedelic experience or they're just put into the forest for a month by themselves. They're forced to self-reflect at that time and have an inner experience. And that's what we're lacking in this world, is these true adults that have a connection with that inner process. So, if you look at politicians and you look at all these people and you just see all these cardboard people, and you could tell none of them have done this inner process. They're just all focused on the outer world, that they forgot who they are themselves.
right. And that's also, one of the ways that we can recognize the human aspect of, no matter what this outer shell that we're all wearing, is that we're all human on the inside. This is just so we can all get there, even if we're the most materialistic doctor, or the most simple person living in the woods. We can all we can all be transformed in some way or healed in some way from wherever
Right.
we're at.
Definitely when when you witness and you feel your own spirit, especially when you're in these other dimensions, and then when you come back, it's like you can just see the divine spirit in everyone, even though people will like to pretend they're not divine and want to feel they're unempowered, and but you can still see it in them. It's like they have all the tools to make this big fire within themselves. They just haven't had the right chemistry just to spark it and get it going.
And the support, that's huge
Right.
too. Just someone saying, I believe you can do it. That's
I
that's
think,
another thing we miss.
once you tap into these things, I think it's just almost common nature, the like attracts like, you start resonating and you start researching and getting into communities or people that are into this stuff, So I think the right action always starts to unfold before you once you start self-reflecting and making your unconscious conscious and doing the work. It's like, that's why I say, the message of love and light is not the right thing. You fix the thing and then the right action will just occur naturally because they will cultivate that gap between their thoughts and actions.
I hope so. sometimes I sometimes I wonder, if I,
And
those
and
harder
people listening to
choices.
this, a lot of people, they're hearing this type of concepts for the very first time. I'm not creating anything new. I'm not making this up. This is like the same thing that's been told for thousands of years, by mystics and so forth.
Hmm.
And you have the experience, all of a sudden you're like, wow, they were right all this time. It makes you look at the Egyptian Book of the Dead totally different and all these different things, and you're like, whoa, these are like maps, and that's when the real work starts happening. I had my divine moment of truth in 2012, but it's like that process is still going. It's still unfolding, and I still learn almost every day.
You're still peeling that onion, so to speak. You're still
Exactly.
peeling back layers and going, oh wow, here's this, but in a whole nother light. Here's a deeper level of it, of understanding what happened to you, um,
Exactly.
and how you changed. Yeah. Yeah, I was actually really surprised to find out how similar the ceremony for the ayahuasca ceremony was to, as it was described to me by an ayahuasquero, um, to other ceremonies that I've taken part in, like Lakota ceremonies, sweat lodge, and things like that. And in the sweat, there's tobacco, but there's no hallucinogen or anything like that. But yet tobacco plays a very important role in the ayahuasca ceremony. So I found that interesting, and the whole plant spirit aspect of it, that the plants have their own spirit, and it's really that you're interacting with uh,
Right.
in the ceremony, rather than
Right.
just the substance of the plant.
Right. So everything we consume and take in, has a form of spirit, even from the animals. I guess that's why like a lot of people become vegetarian or vegan because they feel, all these animals are tortured and, they're taking in that type of energy within themselves, which, is fine. But I know with psychedelics, each plant does seem to have a specific like different little kind of edge to it, and you could call it an archetype or a spirit, but it definitely there's like a different level of energy associated with these different plants.
And I was told that the tobacco actually activates the ayahuasca. So
Hmm.
that's how important the use of it in the ceremony is. Um, yeah, just like sage, cleans things off.
Right, the
And
smoke and the process. It's
hmm.
because I like to look at smoke, and if you look at smoke, you can see it as a dimension. There's just this layer, the like how expansive it is and how it moves. It's almost like alive, and yeah, that I could see how that could be like up because it's putting you like into another portal of another dimension, and then that just activates it.
Yeah, and even scientifically, they found out that sage smoke, it kills like a bunch of, you know, bacteria, bad bacteria and things like that when you. So it really
Right.
does clean a room. So that's the reason that we know that we can use sage in such a way to clean a room, is because of shaman's interaction with that plant spirit, and the plant spirit teaching that shaman, this is what I can do, and then that knowledge being passed down through the ages,
Right.
all the way to
You know,
us.
I'm no master shaman or anything like that, but I know definitely I could see after I returned back into this realm and I felt like I was stuck in the two realms, I could see in that moment how magic is created. I could see those waves. When I looked at my wife, I saw her spirit form. I saw it through her skin, and so I can, it suddenly made magic really real. I could see how it works. I could see my breath coming out in words and how these waves were traveling out, and so that's the same thing with this. Waves are traveling out, and it's entering people's ears, and whether they know it or not, it's changing them. Whether they agree with it or not, it's still affecting them.
Yeah, you can see something instead of it just being a general idea. It was
Yeah.
shown to you
Right.
in a very
So
real sense.
so now the whole process is how to cultivate that craft. So for me, it's an everyday practice now. I guess I am trying to master that in a sense, but it's all with the sense of healing. Like my purpose always feels like I'm trying to do this as an extension of the spirit. It's like I have no message to give. I don't care about myself. It's like I rarely promote the things I do, but that message is what needs to get out there.
Yeah, and I think it is getting out there. I see your posts and I see how inspired people are by it. There's also this element of artists that you showcase,
Right.
visual artists who try to put in visual form some of the things that they've seen while in that state of being
Right.
able to
Yeah.
see things.
Yeah, I've met a lot of great visionary artists. It starts with like Alex Gray's, like the Crown Jewel. He did all the Tool albums, and his visions are DMT inspired. So I think he kind of paved the way for all these new visionary artists, and you'll see a lot of kind of similar type of patterns in their artwork, but it's really because they're bringing that same type of vision from their own experience and trying to bring it to life. And for a lot of people, these visions, having the art around them, kind of helps keep you in that space. As I'm sitting here in my office, I'm looking around my room, and I got like 30 visionary artists paintings around me, so it's like the psychedelic state's always a part of my life.
Which is great. And one of the things that is really interesting to me is how people see these fractal patterns and the sacred geometry. And this is people who've never heard of this stuff before. They
Right.
see it anyway when they do a psychedelic or a DMT or something like that.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, I really get it. I get how this is how the universe unfolds. I see that this pattern is everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember walking my dog a couple of days after my experience and just looking around, and I felt like I was on mushrooms. That's the difference on psilocybin. Psilocybin, you're still grounded with this reality and another. So as I was walking around, I remember just looking at the trees, and the wind wasn't blowing the trees. It was like the trees were dancing in the wind. It was like a reverse thing I was seeing. Like the trees were just alive. And I could just see there was this other tree that has like these leaves that look like fern patterns. And that was like a pattern that was really vivid in my experience. So seeing it, it was just like these other dimensions. I could see how they almost are sprouting into this reality. They sprout through the ground through these trees. It's like it's coming through, and it's just all around if you just really look around and see it. And that's why you see, people take these spiral shells and say, look, here's sacred geometry, and it's just all around us.
And it's life, it's divinity that's part of creation, rather than separate. It's God and or creator, creatress, and created is all one. So
Right.
yeah,
So next time you feel the wind pushing, you see a storm outside, it's like, all right, what's going on? It's like there's something brewing, so you got to just be aware, there's signs around us all the time. People that, fall into this path and start, feeling that they're like on a path that's unfolding, you start to see these signs all around you that validate that, you're on the right track, and, people call it synchronicities and things like that, but really it's just the universe almost just kind of not teasing you, but kind of just being, look, it makes you laugh because it's just like so obvious.
Right. Yeah, and I wonder what it is that keeps people from this recognizing this other part. What is it that is so scary about this reality that you've experienced? I mean, it was frightening. There was death, right? But
Hmm.
look at all that you've in the transformation, all that you've become
Right,
by facing that. It's
right.
really worth it. It's really,
Right.
really worth it.
I get a lot of people ask me, should I do DMT? And I'm like, are you ready to die? You know, and I'm like serious, people laugh and then they'll say no. And it's like, if you're not ready to face your death, then you should really consider again what this is that you're looking to experience. This isn't just mushrooms, you're not just going to feel good and different and weird. This is going to change who you are.
Yeah, that's huge. So do you think
Right.
it gives you a responsibility that others don't have because you've been given this vision?
I guess if I think about it that way, I don't like focus on myself like that much, but I always feel if I'm not expressing something, I always feel like if I don't post something, I'm not helping someone, I feel it's a wasted day for me in a sense.
Mm. So you're driven. You're driven to share.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot of late nights. I would say I average maybe like 3 to 4 hours of sleep a day. It's like I always feel like dreaming is for people that are, for people that sleep, and what the world needs are people that are awake now, so until my body cannot take it no more, I'm up trying to, I'm either researching or I'm just inspiring.
Wow. So you do have a responsibility then if you're putting yourself in, through that sort of hardship. It might not, maybe it's not a hardship. Maybe you're like just in this sort of
You know,
highly
it's
creative
it, I'm
phase.
j- it's like I enjoy it, so it's like I don't want to sound, it's like play, but it's like the music's hard work, but I still enjoy doing it, so it's like it's not even, it's like a no-brainer.
All right. Well, we're going to take a little break before
All right.
the second half. So